Hey guys, welcome back to the Psychedelic Sitter. Second video. Normally I would have a bit more content up, but I'm just recovering from hernia surgery. So yeah, almost fully recovered, so I'll be back on top of things soon. So in this video I wanted to talk about how I discovered the therapeutic use of psychedelics. So we're going to go back in my history. So I'll just start with, a bit of my the history of my health, which I've had a long history of depression and anxiety for long periods over my life. It started from what the doctors tell me, separation anxiety. When I was a baby. So what would happen, my mum used to tell me these stories where I'd be an infant and she'd be in the room with me doing whatever, mum duties, and whenever she would go to leave the room, I would hold my breath until she would come back. And it got to the point where, I'd hold my breath and I'd pass out, and it was really distressing for mum, so she took me to see the doctor. The doctor at this time, they probably didn't know much about this kind of stuff, and so his advice to mum was to leave me in the room and to I just have to get over it. So just repetitive, leaving the baby in the room until it just got better, I guess. So mum would take me home. She'd leave the room, I'd hold my breath, I'd turn blue and purple and pass out, and that was done a fair bit, I guess. I don't really remember, but I'm sure it wasn't the best thing to do for a baby who had separation anxiety, just to keep making them more anxious. Childhood was, a bit of a breeze, to be honest. No major issues at all. It wasn't until, my parents, their marriage wasn't working out, and the best thing for mum to do at that time was to leave the family. Just prior to her leaving, my sister was getting into massive trouble with drugs. Alcohol was a huge concern when she was a teenager, when she was young, and that turned into needles. She was a heavy drug addict. And I remember being, 14, lying in bed and hearing mum and dad just screaming about, they knew that my sister was, injecting herself with needles, hanging out with my sister being the younger brother. There were things that I saw that probably shouldn't have seen at that age, and so the family was definitely falling apart, coming apart by the seams. Dad didn't want to work on the marriage at all, just ignored mum's calls to try and fix it. Anyway, so mum, the best thing for her, she left. She moved down to Canberra. My sister pretty much went to the Gold Coast, and just, the drugs spiraled. Dad he just lost the plot completely, wasn't being a parent, wasn't coming home, so life just went fucking shit. And, for a 15-year-old, 14 turning 15, it wasn't easy. And I definitely went into a depression. There's no doubt about it. I remember my sister coming home from the Gold Coast at some points and finding me like banging my head against a brick wall, just crying relentlessly. It got to the point where I remember Dad taking me. I'd moved out. I was living with friends. I remember at one point I just wasn't coping, just really sad all the time, and this is, after I'd left school. I was probably about 18, and I remember Dad taking me to see my first psychologist and getting on antidepressants for the first time, just numbing kind of stuff. This is going back, almost 20 years pretty much. Yeah. Also want to just say that that drug use from my sister, that was all to cover up a lot of pain. All addictions just used to cover up a lot of pain that is too hard for the body to deal with. We don't want to go internal and face that and try and resolve it, so we have these addictions to make ourselves feel better, to cover up the pain. Story for another day. So that's, I remember, early 20s, different jobs, everyone experiences anxiety, but I remember, just going to the simplest of things to do, going to a new class with my girlfriend and just have an anxiety attack and just petrified, just fear-based everything. Man, anyway, there's lots of stories, but we'll get into those another day. So let's head into my early 30s. So I was living on the Sunshine Coast, stable job, very good barista at the time. Had just moved from Brisbane International Airport, head barista at Aromas there. Got back to the Sunshine Coast Airport, was a head barista there, and then moved on to a place called the Velo Project and was head barista, and just loving life. And then I remember that job, that transition from Brisbane to the sunny coast and then to the Velo Project. I developed a fair bit of anxiety moving into that job. I remember waking up mornings and one morning I woke up and it's like your whole body is numb and kind of frozen. You can't really move. You're really heavily fatigued. You have zero energy, and I was just lying on the bathroom floor in the fetal position. All the colour was drawn out of me. I remember just looking at myself in the mirror and I knew something was terribly wrong. And at this point, man, I was having people fill my shifts at work. I had the nicest boss at the time, Claire DeLune. I love you. She gave me a lot of grace in that period to try and get better. But, I was seeing psychologists. I remember this is when they first got me onto Valium. So just start off with 2 milligrams of Valium to try and get to work, to get through shifts. And then when I got home, to just relax. So that started a bit of a cycle. At this point, and since I was 14, from all of that stuff that I went through, what helped me cope was smoking marijuana. And, not to the point where I am these days, which is all basically for medicinal reasons. This was just to cover up the pain, to numb myself, to get away from reality. And it was all day. I couldn't have a day without smoking. So this continued throughout my 20s, and in my early 30s, when this anxiety really onset strong, I knew I had to make a huge life change. So I essentially stopped smoking up until right before I went to bed at night, and I just smoke a little bit. And I decided to get in shape and exercise and run every day and work out and just see if that would help me get out of this anxiety cycle I was in. And it did. It helped a lot. there was no more calling in sick. There was no more anxiety attacks. Sure, there was a bit of anxiety. And then all of a sudden I got a call at work one day